One of the key tools parents can use to reduce the risk of sexual abuse is learning how to talk to their children about sexuality, and specifically teaching them healthy sexuality. I want to share a story about this, a very personal story, where I botched it big time. In fact, I have a good friend that says every family has a burnt waffle. And what she means by that is the first child gets the experiment. So I'm going to tell you about my first child and our discussion about sexuality and how I botched it, and contrast it hopefully with some positive examples that I had with some of my other children. So my oldest child was 8 years old. This was about 10 years ago. He's now 18. I was going to take my son to a basketball game. We're going to have the big talk. So if you can imagine this, we're driving to a basketball game, and being first-time over-paranoid parents, of course, he's in the back seat as an 8-year-old, sitting in a booster seat. Just what you would expect from first-time parents, right? So I just lay it out and tell all about how sex works, why we have sex, and I went on for about 20 minutes, and at the end of that 20 minutes, I asked him, "Son, do you have any questions?" He said, "Yeah, Dad, I have one." So I'm all amped up thinking this was going to be a great conversation. This was going to be a major success. And then he asked this question, "Dad, can we talk about something else?" Well, you can imagine how I felt as a parent. I thought, oh, that was a total fail. But what wasn't a failure is it started something inside my family that I consider to be extremely valuable. And that is, we as parents learn the importance of talking about sexuality with our kids. So let me contrast this with his younger sister, who's 2 years younger. She was 6 at the time. We immediately had age-appropriate discussions with her about her body and about things that would make sense to her at her age. We didn't have the big talk, but we started the little talks. We started the dialogue. An interesting thing happened as she turned 8 years old. We didn't have to come to her. She came to us. I remember it vividly. We were sitting in our bedroom. I was sitting on the end of her bed. She asked a question that was very poignant about sex. Christy and I made eye contact, and we knew we were heading down the road. She went on for about 30 minutes to ask question after question about sex and sexuality. It was a very appropriate, healthy discussion. Some of the key things that I want you to take away from this. First, if you open a dialogue with your kids about sexuality, it will bear good fruit over time. Second, you as a parent have the responsibility to protect your kids, to keep them safe. And sometimes having hard or what can be uncomfortable conversations with your kids about sex is part of that responsibility. Third, if you open dialogue with your kids, the likelihood that they will elevate conversation to you when they need help or when they are at risk is much higher than if you never talk about the topic. Teaching your kids about sexuality is one of the key tools that you can use as parents and caregivers to keep your children safe from sexual abuse.
Hi. Okay.
All right.
Well, I thought we were supposed to look at the camera.
We didn't say the word sex growing up.
You didn't talk about those things.
So when I grew up, I never had the talk with my dad.
I never had the talk.
Yeah, when I was younger, these topics were uncomfortable, for sure.
I was brought up in a very strict religious family, and you were
Not so much.
not so much.
For me as a Samoan in our culture, it's very taboo to talk about sex, so it was never brought up.
It's an overused term, but knowledge is power, and knowledge helps people understand what to do and what not to do. And I don't think, as parents, we should shy away from telling the truth.
Male and female anatomy, take one.
We joked about male and female anatomy all the time. Like that was funny. We could just use a word, and then it would be, everyone would start laughing instead of fighting. That's how we never used the correct words.
That word was penis.
feel like we've been on the same page with this one, wanting to use appropriate terms with our children from the time they were very young.
Since my son is 3, he calls his penis PP, which is cute. And so we're in the transition of getting him to use penis and understanding the differences between male and female body parts.
We've tried really hard to have lots of little talks and to create an environment in our home where there's no subject that's taboo. We will talk about anything.
I feel like those are all my thoughts on that.
I think that's
You know when you're not supposed to laugh? How it makes you laugh. Sometimes I feel like, you know what, we're just gonna move into the woods and live in a teepee and we'll never have to deal with any of the scary things that are on the internet.
My daughter approached me the other day and said, "Mom, why can't I have Instagram?" And I said, "No, we'll think about it when you're 14. She said, "Well, can I at least look on your Instagram?" And I said, "Yeah, in fact, let's take a look at it together."
Instead of just saying, oh, I'm just gonna take those things away from my kids, I'm trying to take an active approach and say, wouldn't it be better to teach my kids how to use those things for good?
We sat down and went through my Instagram feed, and I talked to her about the type of followers I have, the type of people that I follow, talked to her about things that I post, things that I don't post.
I hope our kids will understand that their online presence should reflect their actual in-person presence. They're gonna put that in there.
I know. There's no way that we can completely protect our children from seeing pornography.
We had to understand what happens to a developing brain when it's exposed to sexually explicit material, and then how do we help them? They're gonna see it, we know that.
Tell them that, that stuff is fictional versus what you do in real life, where a relationship has to have more than just physical intimacy, but also that emotional attachment as well.
While we'd like to protect our kids from that, our goal is also to give them the tools that when they see something like that, it doesn't ruin them. It doesn't damage them beyond belief. It doesn't make them feel guilt or shame. They understand that's not what a healthy sexual relationship looks like. That's something I don't want to view or participate in, and it slides right over them.
Yeah.
Should we
In this house.
pause or just keep going?
Let's just keep going.
Teaching healthy sexuality, we've come to understand as parents, is really important in keeping our kids safe from sexual abuse.
I want to be like my father has been with me and be open about these things and be a place where my children can ask questions.
We know that if we are their source of education, if we are the ones that are teaching them about sex, about avoiding abuse, they're going to come to us.
To decide what it is that you want to do as a parent, what matters to you, why it matters to you.
Again, the research that we've looked at has shown that if you start teaching your children young about healthy sexuality, it will help deter sexual abuse.
Today at school, Tommy told me that if you kiss a girl, that's how you make babies. Ew, gross!
Why do I always walk in on all the awkward conversations? Options. I could just pretend I didn't hear anything. Nope. I could make their dad talk to them about it. Not soon enough. Oh, maybe I can save all the awkwardness for that one big talk. Yikes. Dr. Andrews said to have a lot of little talks while they're young and being open and honest, but I just feel so awkward. I'm the one making this awkward. It's just about teaching them something they need to know. And it's better for me than some kid at school. Hey boys, did I hear you say something about kissing and babies?